I really enjoy the crazy hijinks Deadpool gets involved in the Marvel comic book universe, especially when it's a funny, light-hearted story. Today, we will not be looking at a story like this. Instead, I will take you on a journey through the Marvel multiverse to a world much like the main continuity, but with one key change. Our fun-loving merc with a mouth, Deadpool, has gone insane and quite literally killed every hero and villain alike in his world. Let's take a look into what happened to Deadpool that finally broke his sanity, or what little he had to begin with. From there, we'll take a look at his most brutal confrontations, which is probably the reason we're all here. Our story begins with Professor X accompanied by his X-Men, bringing Deadpool into a psychiatric facility. In this world, it would seem the superhero community decided Deadpool needed to be forcibly admitted to an asylum, and his random gibberish doesn't help his case. Once the heroes leave, the Doctor begins his consultation with Wade. It is then revealed that the person we thought was a psychologist is the villain, Psycho Man. It's also important to note the two distinct voices in Wade's head, which the reader can differentiate by the box color. Psycho Man then activates a device, causing Deadpool to squirm on the floor in agony. He explains his plan to use Deadpool as a weapon against the heroes. He believes that by manipulating the fractured mind of Deadpool, he can essentially brainwash him to do his bidding. This is the moment something irreversibly changes in our silly hero, his mind finally shattered. This introduces us to a new voice and evil personality given life in the form of red box texts. Psycho Man thinks his conditioning is complete and he checks in on his new weapon. Deadpool pounces on the Doctor with no hesitation. Wrapping his sleeves around his neck, Wade pulls with all his strength. He breaks the neck of what turns out to be a robot, piloted by real Psycho Man. He kind of resembles Darkseid from DC Comics, except he is only a few inches tall. The new voice in Wade's head tells him to kill the little monster, and so he grabs him tight in his hand and proceeds to smash to jelly, using him as a stamp for Wade's own release forms. This may not seem so different from the Deadpool you are used to, but trust me, things go dark very quick from here. With the Doctor dead, Wade takes it upon himself to visit all the other residents of the asylum. He kills every last one of them and burns the whole place to the ground. Men, women, patients and workers alike, all ash. Now that we've seen how it all started, let's take a look at all of my favorite confrontations that take place in this story. We swing into the fight, where Spiderman is engaged with Deadpool 100 feet in the air. Spidey easily evades his attacks, leaving Wade to come crashing down, splatting like a watermelon. A crowd looks on in horror at the sight of it. Spidey comes swinging in, possibly thinking the fight must be over. Peter then says that Wade is lucky he doesn't kill him, like he killed so many others. Deadpool knows he wouldn't though, thanks to his fourth wall-breaking knowledge. In a rage, Peter gets close to Deadpool, grabbing him by the collar. Deadpool seems to look towards the reader and gives a little foreshadowing for the next panel. I'm not sure why his Spidey sense didn't warn him, but Deadpool sneakily raises his gun to the chin of Spiderman. And just like that, the friendly neighborhood Spiderman is no more. The crowd of bystanders look on in horror as their once great hero has been reduced to street pizza. Wade grabs his sword and begins stumbling down an alley, ready to move on to his next set of targets, the Avengers. With the news of Deadpool's killing spree, the core Avengers roster has been called together to discuss what to do. By this point, Deadpool has already killed a decent percentage of the superhero population, so he is obviously too far gone to reason with. As Wolverine states, it's either kill or be killed. It's then that Jarvis tells everyone Hank Pym is missing. Pym is assumed dead. Not only that, but Pym particles are missing. It's not long before everyone figures out what happened to them. You see, earlier that day, Deadpool stole the Pym particles to shrink down a bunch of bombs and hide them in Avengers Tower. The initial explosion was so sudden that it incinerated seemingly everyone there besides Luke Cage and Thor. Deadpool expected this, which is why he also shrunk bombs into the Avengers' coffees. Because only his skin is unbreakable, this is more than enough to kill Power Man. Now for the real challenge: how could Wade possibly kill a god such as Thor? The answer comes fast as Thor launches his hammer towards Deadpool, who not only does the attack, but uses his last Pym particles to enlarge the hammer as it is returning. Thor is completely crushed under the weight of his own weapon, the irony not being lost on anyone. As the god of thunder takes his last breaths, Deadpool looks on from a distance, uncharacteristically silent as he takes it all in. This is not fun and games to him. He is simply doing what he feels needs to be done. The next time we see Deadpool, he is being ripped to shreds by the Incredible Hulk. It would appear that Deadpool may have angered the Jolly Green Giant, and Hulk is possibly the last man you would want to make angry. He stands triumphant over the pieces that were once Deadpool, and now he is ready to be left alone. The Hulk then jumps away into the desert in the hopes of finding some peace. As the sun begins to set, the monster enters his deep slumber. Once asleep, the Hulk reverts back to his human form, Bruce Banner. This is exactly what Deadpool was planning on happening, as we see him sneaking up on the helpless Dr. Banner. And with one clean slice with his katanas, the Incredible Hulk is no more, being shredded apart in a way visually similar to Deadpool earlier. Again, the irony with the deaths continues, and it makes the story that much more interesting for us. Deadpool stands still in the night, contemplating his next move, while thousands of miles away, we see Tony Masters, Taskmaster. He follows Deadpool's trail of death all across the country and ends up in the Everglades swamps. Taskmaster approaches Wade from the brush, and we see Deadpool standing calmly, almost as if he was waiting on him. In theory, Taskmaster should have both the equipment and the skill to take out Deadpool. He may not be physically enhanced, but he has the ability to copy any movement or fighting style he's seen. So really, it's like fighting Black Panther, Captain America, Spiderman, and others, all rolled into one person. Both opponents seem evenly matched, going blow for blow with one another. For every strike one of them lands, the other responds in kind. The fight rages on for several minutes, neither person willing to give an inch. Instinctively, Taskmaster begins to mimic every move of Deadpool, so much so that he even begins to think like him. Amazingly, Taskmaster is now able to hear the evil voice in Wade's head. He is finally beginning to see things the way Deadpool sees them, and he finds that terrifying. At this moment, that the Man-Thing can be seen rising from the marsh. He grabs Taskmaster's head, setting him ablaze, for anything that knows fear burns at the Man-Thing's touch. We now move along in our violent journey to the X-Mansion, home of the X-Men. Professor X is tied up, with Deadpool sitting beside him. Wade stabs the professor in the leg and demands that he calls all his students to him. Deep in their minds, they hear his voice, and without thinking first, they all run towards him. Deadpool rigged death traps all over the place, though, and Cyclops is contained in a hardened material. The others try to help, but it just won't come off. In a desperate attempt to save himself, Cyclops unleashes his optic blasts. Unfortunately for himself and those around him, this is exactly what Deadpool was counting on. The group is incinerated on the spot with no chance of survival. Professor X is aghast, but it only gets worse from here. Colossus, Gambit, and Rogue are using all their power to stop the walls from crushing them, and they remain very hopeful. The walls were only a distraction as the floor lights up with a deadly electric charge the heroes have burnt to a crisp. With the main roster defeated, Wade is ready to play some head games with Xavier. He starts trying to explain his new philosophy on the world, how it's all meaningless because they're just in a comic book. This was the realization Wade had when his mind broke, that his entire world only exists for the entertainment of us, the reader. Professor X then goes into the mind of Deadpool with the initial intentions of killing him, but once their minds are connected, Xavier realizes Deadpool is actually right. The absolute shock of this sends Xavier into a catatonic state, essentially making him brain dead. And so ends the X-Men, or so it would seem. There was somebody Deadpool killed earlier in the story who has come back to life, and he's a wild animal on the hunt now. That seemingly unkillable hero is Wolverine, and he is hot on Wade's trail. He stumbles in to find Arcade chained up. Deadpool used Arcade to build all the death traps we've seen. Wolverine follows his nose and finds both his children strapped to a machine that incinerated them every time they begin to heal. The sight of this sends Logan into a berserker rage, which is the exact moment Deadpool chooses to make himself known. The visuals of Deadpool wearing the pelt of Beast as a cape is probably one of the coolest things I've seen in this entire story, and that's saying something. To counteract Wolverine's healing factor, Deadpool dons a sword made out of carbonadium, which renders their mutant abilities useless. Wolverine gives it his best, but he is pretty easily cut to bits by Deadpool, who finally finishes Logan off for good by cutting his head from his body. Now it's time for the final kill, and who else could I end on besides the Punisher? Hiding away in an ideal sniper point, Punisher lines up his shot on Deadpool, and before he even knows it, he's dropped Deadpool. He knows he only has moments before he regenerates, so he wastes no time in moving in on his target. The Punisher kicks the door down, guns at the ready. He moves in to remove Deadpool's mask, and we see it's not even Wade that was shot. It's the villain Puppet Master, which is when Punisher realizes he's walked into a trap, but it's too late. He can't move a muscle no matter how hard he struggles, as Deadpool appears behind him. Deadpool is holding a doll of Punisher, which he had the Puppet Master make. This is essentially a voodoo doll to help you understand what's going on. And just like that, the Punisher is just yet another one of the countless murders Deadpool commits during the course of this story. These are not all the deaths that take place, but they were certainly the most satisfying, if I'm even allowed to say that. If you found this video to be satisfying as well, I greatly appreciate a like, subscribe, or even just a comment sharing your thoughts. I only included information on Volume 1 of Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, and keep in mind there are 2 more volumes. I really enjoyed this story, so if you'd like to see me do this for the other volumes as well, don't hesitate to let me know. If you're still here at this point, you are always my favorite, just don't tell my other viewers. They get so jealous. Until next time, my friends.